The British Prime Minister Keir Starmer also said President Trump's threat to impose tariffs on allies who oppose his position on Greenland risks a potential trade war. That's after Trump threatened a 10% import tax on goods from 8 European nations, including the UK. So joining us now this morning is senior markets reporter at Axios, Madison Mills. Madison, good to see you on this Monday. So, as you know, the president initially used these tariff threats for economic goals, but now we're seeing them used in an attempt to push his agenda or to punish allies of the United States who do not agree with his geopolitical strategies. So what's the impact been from this so far? And what is Europe saying about what they are going to do in retaliation if the president goes through with this?
Well, you really hit the nail on the head. This is why we're seeing EU leaders responding a little bit more aggressively this time around versus when the tariff discussion came up last April. When that happened, it was sort of viewed as an economic challenge, right? Let's make sure that we're having reciprocity when it comes to tariffs. EU leaders were willing to capitulate on that in regards to how they were responding to this administration. But this time around, President Trump is really using tariffs as a geopolitical tool, and EU leaders are saying that it's being used as a weapon. In fact, Germany this morning saying that this is a red line that has been crossed. We have EU leaders talking about using an emergency tool called the bazooka that's never been used before in EU history in response to these potential tariffs, really coming out strongly and as a united front as EU leaders pushing back against this potential push to control what they see as a sovereign nation and as a potential threat to the security of the European Union as a whole.
So, Madison, you're right. I mean, European leaders are really standing up to the president, although the UK is kind of, Keir Starmer's trying to thread a needle there. But let's talk about the Supreme Court decision that everyone's waiting on about the legality of the president's tariffs. How could these new tariffs, this new round, be impacted by that decision?
So this round of potential tariffs that the president has put forth, this 10% number, he did that under IEEPA, which is an Emergency Powers Act. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent over the weekend was asked, what is the emergency here? And he said, quote, this is the avoidance of a national emergency sort of coming up. So it's unclear whether or not the use of IEEPA makes sense here. But to your exact point, we have the Supreme Court potentially deciding on Tuesday on whether or not the president is even able to utilize IEEPA to put forward these tariffs. I was just texting a source about this right before we all started talking about this idea of IEEPA being utilized for tariffs. And the one thing that people are maybe not talking about enough is that the president doesn't need IEEPA to put these tariffs on other countries. He has other methods, Section 203, 210, for example. So he could still pursue tariffs through other means. But if his use of tariff policy via IEEPA does get struck down, that could change the conversation when it comes to the potential ratcheting up of tensions between the U.S. and the EU right now.
All right, Madison Mills breaking it down for us this morning. Madison, thank you very much.